Whenever you go outside and look up at the sky, you'll see clouds. Some are big, white, puffy clouds, whilst others are dark and threatening. You get some clouds that are really high in the atmosphere and others that can be right in front of you. All clouds are fascinating and people have been amazed by their power and beauty for thousands of years. But you may have looked at a cloud and wondered, what type of cloud is it? What do scientists call it? How can you tell which cloud is which? How is this cloud different to this cloud? Through this video, we're going to teach you all about clouds. We're going to tell you about a man who decided to name them and how you too can spot and name clouds just like him. We're also going to show you how clouds are created and some of the weird and wonderful clouds you can find. Clouds are one of nature's wonders, and by the end of this video you should be able to go outside and amaze your friends and family by telling them exactly what cloud they're looking at and how it got there. When you look up at the sky, you may have asked, what cloud is that? What's its name? You may have given them names yourself because they look like something. What does this cloud look like? Can you see the animal in this one? People have found some very funny shapes in the sky, but scientists don't name the clouds this way. They have more scientific names for them. This fluffy white cloud that you may have seen in the sky is a cumulus cloud, and this low misty one is called a stratus. But what do these names mean, and who gave them these strange names? The clouds were named by a man called Luke Howard, and we have one of his descendants here to tell you all about the amazing work his ancestor did.
Hello, my name is Oliver Howard and I'm descended from Luke Howard. He was my great-great-great-grandfather. Luke Howard was born almost 250 years ago on the 28th of November 1772, and although he worked as a chemist, he really loved to watch and record the weather both as a schoolboy in Oxfordshire and later around London. But how did this chemist from London become such an important man in the weather world, and how did he name the clouds? It was his paper on the modifications of clouds which brought him fame and transformed the science of weather. Luke Howard identified the three cloud types that are usually visible. They were the cumulus cloud, stratus cloud, and cirrus cloud. Although clouds are always changing and moving, he discovered you can always identify any cloud as one of these three types. Now, let's try and identify the three types of clouds and understand what these names mean. Let's start with cumulus clouds. They're easily the most recognizable ones to spot. They're known as the cotton wool tufts that form on a sunny day. They have flat bases and tops that look like the head of a cauliflower. They usually form over land on sunny days and are known as fair weather clouds. But be careful, because some cumulus clouds can develop into pretty threatening thunderclouds. You can see from this video how quickly clouds change and how many different types there are. You can watch out for these clouds by remembering that if it looks very tall and like a cauliflower, and you may get some rain. Now let's turn to the stratus cloud. This is a low, flat and misty cloud that very much resembles fog or mist. Unlike the cumulus cloud, with its crisp cauliflower mounds, the stratus cloud is featureless and drab. It brings with it drizzle and dampness. In fact, it's a pretty depressing cloud. It's commonly found around coasts and mountains, and is the lowest forming cloud. It may seem like a harmless cloud compared to the ones we'll look at later, but it can be quite dangerous, especially when it's very dense. The final type of cloud that Luke Howard named was the cirrus cloud. Cirrus clouds are one of the highest clouds you can find. The word cirrus is the Latin word for a lock of hair, and they usually cover the sky in wispy streaks. But why do they look wispy and not puffy like other clouds? This is because high up in the atmosphere, it's so cold that clouds are made of ice crystals rather than drops of water. The ice crystals fall, and as they fall, they're whipped up by very strong wind, and so fall in streaks. Because they're so high up in the atmosphere, it looks as if they aren't moving at all, but of all the clouds, they move the fastest. As we've seen so far, Luke Howard's work was very important for weather forecasters today and helped them not only to identify the clouds in the sky, but also to predict what the weather might do next. I'm now going to pass you back to the narrator, tell you all about how clouds are formed and some of the strange cloud formations you can find.
So far we've learned about all these main types of clouds that can be found, but how do they form in the first place? Clouds, no matter the shape or size, all form in the same sort of way. It's only how high they are in the sky and the conditions up there that determine what they'll look like. So, how do they form? Firstly, water from rivers, ponds, lakes or oceans evaporates into the air. This moist air rises up and expands as it gets higher up in the atmosphere where the pressure is lower than down on the ground. This air then cools and the water vapour changes into very tiny droplets that form into clouds. But the amazing thing about all this is that the conditions have to be just right. You need to have the right temperature, and the water also needs to hold on to something, such as particles of dust, salt or smoke, to make the cloud droplets. If these elements aren't right, then the cloud won't form. Then, when it rains, this water returns to the rivers, lakes and oceans, and the whole process starts all over again. The amazing thing is that the water makes this journey between the Earth's surface and the atmosphere 40 times a year. So far, we've looked at the three main types of clouds and how they form. Now we're going to have a brief look at some really strange clouds that you may not see every day. One particularly weird-looking one is the mammatus cloud. Luke Howard took this name from a Latin word that means udders, and you can see why they were named this way, as they do rather look like the udders you see on cows. This cloud can be found on the underside of a number of different types of cloud and forms when pockets of very wet and cold air sink very quickly from the top of the storm cloud, pushing downwards and creating this strange ripple effect. Another very weird cloud is the Altocumulus lenticularis cloud. This one has often fooled people into thinking it was a UFO, and you can kind of see why. This strange formation mainly occurs in mountainous regions where a stable layer of humid air is forced to rise high over the ground, condensing its moisture into cloud. So, if you ever see a UFO-shaped object in the sky, do take a minute to think whether it could be a cloud, creating these rather bizarre shapes. As well as creating strange shapes, clouds can also be very powerful, creating destruction wherever they go. We are, of course, talking about hurricanes and tornadoes. Tornadoes are probably the most dangerous clouds around and can have wind speeds that reach more than 300 miles an hour and stretch more than a mile across. They're violent, dangerous, rotating columns of air which is in contact with both the surface of the Earth and they form a cloud. Another very powerful type of cloud that you may have heard of is a hurricane. These develop when storms pass over warm tropical oceans, picking up heat and moisture. Conditions have to be just right, and if there's a ready supply of heat and moisture, then the storm will continue to build and create a great swirl of clouds and very strong winds. But coastal areas can get most of the damage where the strong winds, rain and waves can destroy houses, roads and trees and pretty much anything they hit. Next time you hear about hurricanes on the news, you'll be able to understand how deadly and powerful they really are. In this video, we've shown you some amazing clouds. We've told you all about how they form and what they're called. We've told you about Luke Howard, who named the clouds, and we've shown you just how important his work was. Clouds and their power and beauty can be admired in many ways. And now you can go outside and start looking at clouds and understand where they came from, what they are, and what they might become.